our philosophy as investors is like culture is going to shift to meet crypto where crypto is at versus crypto contorting itself to meet people where they are right now. We've always sort of had this view that we're the most interested in like what's crypto native and starting with a crypto native user base, a crypto native creator base, like starting with something that's like net new versus targeting people who are already engaging in some behavior.
Episode 29 of Invest in Music with Li Jin. We talk about her background as an investor in consumer crypto, her life living abroad, going to a bunch of crypto conferences and having a great time figuring out what it means to build the future of ownership. As a reminder, you can collect this episode on investinmusic.xyz. Li Jin's a really close friend of mine. We had an incredible conversation. So without further ado, let's get into it. Episode 29 of Invest in Music with Li Jin. Hey guys, just a quick heads up that the first 15 minutes of this podcast did get a little bit tricky here. It was a one-man show out there in Brooklyn, so if the audio quality is sounding less than usual, it's because we had a little bit of an issue, but rest assured, after 15 minutes, we're all back to normal. But in that time span, we cover a bunch of amazing topics, so thank you for your patience, and let's get into the episode. All right, we are back live in Williamsburg. We got Li Jin in the building, the Variant offices. How are we doing today, Li?
I'm doing well. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Happy mainnet. We've made it to the end.
Yeah. You were saying to me earlier, You're a little bit exhausted, huh?
Yeah, I'm tapping out after today.
Yeah.
I'm not going to keep going tonight. I mean, I say that, but who knows?
So what does a conference week look like for those who have never been to one before?
It looks like just complete nonstop energy, like have to keep going, energize our money kind of vibes. Lots of like Manhattan, Brooklyn, back and forth, like multiple times a day. Lots of planning ahead with when you're going to eat, what shoes you're going to wear. Not a lot of sleep. Mm-hmm. Lots of walking through Times Square at night, people watching, hopping from party to party. Lots of meetings, lots of like hanging out with our portfolio founders in person, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. And our whole team is here this week.
Love that.
Which has been awesome because we've historically been remote. We started remote during COVID, so it's nice to have everyone in the office.
Yeah, and thank you for having me in the office.
Yeah. Welcome.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Thanks so much for hosting me on the podcast, and it's great to have you here in the office.
Yeah, likewise. It's been an amazing week for me. You guys had an awesome happy hour yesterday. And last week we did an amazing panel at Permissionless, so it's been quite the circuit for us. I feel like we've been going all over the place the last few weeks.
I feel like we're just attached at the hip, so I see you every day now.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Well, we'll take it back to the beginning here. So for people who don't know Li, why don't you start us out with who you are, maybe give a little background on your involvement in the consumer crypto space.
Sure. So I'm Li Jin. I'm a general partner and co-founder at Varient. We're a crypto early stage venture firm, so we focus solely on crypto investing, and we invest across the full stack from low-level infrastructure, developer tools, all the way up to consumer applications. And I've personally spent my entire career in consumer startups and consumer software. I used to be a consumer product manager for an early stage startup in the shopping and loyalty space. And then I've been investing in consumer startups since 2016, first at Andreessen Horowitz, and then through my own firm, and now at Varient. And so I've always been focused on like consumers and trying to understand what do consumers want, what is going to resonate with them, what are the opportunities that remain to be built. And so I feel like it's a really top of mind topic these days in crypto, especially since I think everyone is sort of waiting for crypto's next act. And our view, at least my view, I won't say that it's everyone's view, but my view is like the next act of crypto has to be consumer. It has to be through applications that actually onboard a ton of consumers and that like solve real problems for them, because we can't. I think we're past the stage of there just being another wave of crypto that's solely predicated on speculation.
Yeah, it's something that I mentioned to you yesterday. I was talking to a pretty prominent artist, and they basically just said, I feel like crypto's a flop because nothing actually sticks. And every time that there is a wave that happens, I end up investing my money, and and then I either lose as much I invested, or I get hit with a lawsuit, or a myriad of other things. And so I think there's just a lot of skepticism out there about what is the actual intention and purpose of all this stuff in the first place.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's like we're at this moment where I think a lot of people in the space are lost and searching for why are we even here, and maybe losing sight of that. So I always like to bring it back to why are we here in the first place? And I think everyone has a personal reason for why we're here, which is deeply personal to them. But then I think there's another interesting question that we can ask ourselves, which is like, why does crypto deserve to exist? I was speaking to my partner Jesse earlier this morning, and yeah, he was telling me about this question as like maybe another interesting lens through which to look at the space. Like, what is our justification for our existence? Why should the world even care that crypto exists? Why are we here? Why do we need to exist? And I think there was a podcast episode where Brian Chesky, in the depths of COVID, when Airbnb was struggling because no one was traveling anymore, was like, what is the reason for Airbnb to exist, and like, why does it deserve to exist? It deserved to exist because people wanted to travel and experience things and locations authentically. And so we can think about like, why does crypto deserve to exist? And like, I think there's a lot of different reasons, but for me, crypto deserves to exist because the existing structures that we have around ownership and how power is distributed in the world are suboptimal and not fair. And there's a lot of improvement that we can make upon how ownership is distributed that would move us closer to a world that we all want to live in, that is more meritocratic and more equitable. So I think that's the reason for our existence, is like creating these new pathways and new opportunities for people to be able to participate. And that is still like such a huge need in the world. I still walk through the world feeling like, yeah, the way that things are arranged in the world economically, power-wise, is not the way it should be. And crypto as a technology represents like so much potential in terms of moving us closer to that.
I think there's quite a lot to unpack there from like how we actually make sense of that all. And before we go there, I want to start with your journey and how you got here in the first place, because I think a lot of people know you from your writing, they know you as an investor and from being popular on Twitter. But what kind of started it all off for you? Like, how did you get into tech in the first place, and what inspired you to want to start thinking about being an investor as a career path?
Yeah, I tell people that I fell into investing. It wasn't like this pre-planned thing. I graduated from college and didn't even know that venture capital was a job that people had. So there was no like 10-year plan or anything like that. I don't really believe in that approach to careers because the world is changing, you're changing, and what your interests are and where your passions lie, they're constantly in flux and evolving, and so it doesn't make sense to like plan so far ahead. So anyways, my story was, as I mentioned, like I was working at a consumer startup. I was a PM there, so I was managing like all of our growth products, and then like retention and onboarding, the user experience, and then I spent some time working on the core product experience and monetization, and then that company, which was called Shopkick, got acquired. And so after the acquisition, I spent a couple of years like continuing to work on the business, and then I felt like I had seen the entire life cycle of this startup, all the way from like early stage startup to like now part of a larger corporation, and I was ready for something new. And I didn't really know what that something new was, but I knew that I loved working on products that people actually use, that where I could see the impact and like have products that I created from nothing be in people's hands and like shape their daily lives. So that was like the theme of what I wanted to move towards. And at the urging of like one of my mentors, my old manager actually, who was the director of product there, he was like, well, if you want to like continue to build consumer products and be a senior product person in your career, but you're not sure like what that product is or where you want to go work next, like maybe consider venture. Like, have you thought about venture capital as a job that you could have where you get exposed to so many different companies and you can think about product from a business perspective, where like you think holistically about what makes certain businesses valuable and not, and how they formulate their strategies. And I was like, no, I've never thought about that. But okay, that sounds compelling. And so let me just like apply to some venture jobs. And so really like just by chance I applied, and honestly it's hard to just emphasize how naive and like how little I knew at this stage of my career. I had no idea like what was a tier 1 fund, what was a tier 2 fund. Anyways, I just applied at random basically to Andreessen Horowitz on their website, a16z.com/jobs. Threw in my resume expecting nothing would come of it, and to their credit, to my surprise, they actually read those. And so someone reached out and was like, do you want to come in and talk to us? And so that kicked off like a multi-month interview process. And then obviously the rest is history. I ended up going there and working on the consumer investment team, and went in thinking that I would be there for like a year before I start, I found my next gig in product and like found the startup that I wanted to work at. That turned into 4 years of investing there, working with amazing companies like HipCamp and Substack and Clubhouse and many, many others. And now I'm still investing, so I never went back to product, but I'm still on the investor side of the table. But a lot of those experiences and a lot of what shaped my motivations to even get into investing in the first place still stand, which is that I still am like very deeply fascinated by consumer products and how product builders decide what to work on, like how to figure out what consumers actually want, what makes them tick, what are their unmet needs that can still be innovated and improved upon. And that's still like the question that I bring to work every day.
And this is also where you met Jesse, if I understand correctly, right?
Correct. Yeah, Jesse, my partner, and I were coworkers, and we met at A16Z, where he was on the crypto team and I was on the consumer team. So we were actually like investing in 2 separate areas. And I would say like, yeah, for a long time, like our world stuff did not actually intersect. Like crypto was very much developer focused for much of the time that we were both there. And I was obviously investing in like consumer platforms and marketplaces and social and media. And then like in 2019, I wrote this piece called The Passion Economy and the Future of Work, about how platforms could enable people to do work in new ways and earn by doing what they love for a living. And I remember Jesse was like, you're actually a crypto investor regardless of whether or not you realize it, because everything that's in this piece, like crypto enables this vision of the world that you have. Like, have you thought about ownership and not just income, and like how people could earn actual tokens representing ownership instead of just getting revenue? And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, sure, okay. And it wasn't until about a year later where I was like, actually, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And ownership is like the next step of how to get people more closely aligned with the success of a network. But it was like this very long, like, and windy intellectual journey that I was on, and also where like we sort of converged.
And where did your sort of writing behavior stem from? Like, when did you start to develop a platform as someone that was like writing and publishing on, Substack and, Medium and Twitter? Like, where did that kind of whole thing start from?
That is very, very deep rooted and goes way back to honestly my childhood.
Nice.
Where
let's get into it.
I mean, how far back do you want to go? Like
all the way.
Okay, all the way. I moved to the U.S. when I was 6 years old. Moved to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Did not speak a single word of English. Actually, I think I knew the English word banana, because bananas were my favorite fruit. Always has been my favorite fruit. Love bananas. And so when we were about to immigrate to America, my mom was like, oh my God, like, you don't speak English, you need to know the word for your favorite food, banana. So anyways, I show up to first grade and like the only thing I can say is banana.
That's incredible.
And I just like don't understand any of the kids around me. I'm terrified. And anyways, my ESL teacher, like I remember her coming around to our homeroom and like plucking me out of my desk and like bringing me to her room and like teaching me English. This was when I was 6. And yeah, that I give a lot of credit to this ESL teacher because she inspired this lifelong love of the English language, which I now speak. But it started with her, and she taught me how to speak English, and like within 4 or 5 months I was fluent. Because at that age your brain is like a sponge for knowledge about languages. You can just like become fluent so quickly at that age. It's magical.
It's amazing.
Anyway, so that's when I like learned how to read and speak English. And then I remember I won a diary, like a physical Lisa Frank diary, in a bingo game after school. And I started writing this diary. It had a little lock on it and a little key, which you didn't really need. You could just like pick the lock. Anyways, I wrote in this diary every single day. And basically, writing was like this through line of my life where I kept a diary from age 6 all the way to age 22. When I graduated from college, I wrote every single day. I loved writing. In like first it was physical diaries, and then I like had a live journal, Zenka, Blogspot, Tumblr. Like I used all the blogging platforms. Like writing has just been something that I do every single day. And then in college, I actually initially was an English major, an English literature major, studying like colonial American literature and then Victorian literature. And then I was like writing prolifically for the Crimson, which was our student newspaper. So anyways, writing like goes way back into like just what I've always loved. And I love language. I love like expressing my thoughts in words. Words of affirmation are my love language. No one needs to know that, but like I just love words. And so then when I became an investor, I realized like, writing and externalizing your thinking is actually like very valuable for this job, because that's how like founders know what you're interested in, and people can like sort of identify themselves in your thinking that you put into words. And so writing as an investor started at A16Z, and it has always like been this thing that I love to do. It's I don't view it as a chore. I view it as like, it's like breathing to me. Yeah. It's so powerful too, because you can say so much in so little words. You know, the one thing I've always admired about your writing is that you're very succinct in what you write about, and you have these ideas and these theses that present themselves in a very digestible way. And I feel like the sign of being a great writer is being able to say a lot in very little words. And being really pithy. I mean, there's that quote, I forget from whom, but it's like, if I had more time to work on this, it would be half the length. I think the hallmark of like really elegant writing is that it's concise, it expresses, it packs a punch, it's very powerful in few words. And I think that's the way I talk as well. I try not to waste words. I select them very carefully. I definitely have this like love affair with words. Words of affirmation, Li Jin's love language. You heard it here first. So talk to me about, you're at A16Z, you're writing, you're focusing on consumer, you then spin out to start your own fund. And I'd love to hear about the transition from you working at a big organization like A16Z to going out and doing your own thing. Yeah, so I think, there were lots of steps involved in that, but a big turning point was definitely that thesis around the passion economy and the future of work. And when I wrote that, I think it opened up the floodgates for a ton of founders, and also like put into words what a lot of people felt but didn't really know how to describe themselves as. A lot of founders wrote to me being like, I didn't know how to describe my startup until now, and now I know like what I'm building. And so that piece and all of the ensuing kind of startups that I saw, a lot of the traction that it got, sort of started the spark in my head of like, maybe I should like focus on this as a dedicated effort and create a whole firm around this, around supporting the next generation of online work and what the future of work looks like. And then COVID obviously was a huge accelerant to all of the themes that I wrote about. And so, that's exactly what I did. I went out, I fundraised during COVID and raised a small fund to focus exclusively on the passion economy and on just this future of work theme. And I would say like the whole firm and like everything that I did was informed by like, how do we support the next generation of what like entrepreneurship looks like and what being a solopreneur looks like.
And yeah, it was a crazy journey, like raising during a global pandemic, not advisable. I think it takes a lot of both maybe like a confidence and naivete to start something in general. And I definitely had that mix when I set off to start Atelier. And it was an amazing journey. Like I invested in some incredible businesses. Like I invested in Foundation and Mirror and a lot of like Web2 companies as well. And ultimately like the intellectual journey, the investing journey that I went on through that firm paved the way for where I am now and paved the way for like a lot of my in-depth interest in crypto.
And I want to give you so much credit because you did it all on your own. You know, like being a solo GP is something that I don't think people talk about. And I think that people think of investors and they don't understand that investors need to raise money as well to be able to invest that money into companies. And so I guess just unpacking that a bit, like emotionally, how was that for you, raising money for yourself and being able to kind of create this foundation for you to have the life that you wanted to live?
Yeah, in a way, I mean, it was interesting because I felt like that journey was me living the passion economy thesis.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm leaning into like my unique ideas, my individuality to make a living. And the way that I monetize this brand that I've built and these ideas that I have is through venture. And I saw so many parallels across so many different like various creative fields. So I was like living the thesis. I was like the ultimate encapsulation of living your own thesis and like living your values. But yeah, as you said, like I was doing it all myself. It's I think around that time also like early 2020 was like when the moment, when there was a lot of like solo GPs getting started, and a lot of like new venture firms that were started by like one single investor or two investors were getting started. And it's both like really empowering because you have ultimate flexibility and freedom, but it's also like quite tiring and taxing and lonely. And so I think we've seen a lot of consolidation among just like smaller venture firms in the ensuing years because yeah, it's a lot to take on your own. And the way that I think I managed that was by having like essentially a team. It wasn't a formal team, but it was like, you know, my personal board of advisors or like other peers at other firms who were like extended teams for me, where we would actually have like deal review meetings once a week where we would talk about all the deals that we had seen and like evaluate them together. And Jesse was one of those people for me. We would talk every single week and like share deal flow and like talk about how it was like to fundraise and go on that journey together. And I think a lot of solo GPs have to have that because otherwise it's like so lonely to do it on your own. Kind of like being a creator too. Like you're constantly just having to be in the mix and like pair up or surround yourself with people who are going through the same journey.
Yeah. So talk to me about the migration from Atelier to Variant. Like when did you start to at least consider that as a possibility, and what was the process of going from a solo GP fund to joining Jesse and Spencer and Variant as a whole?
Yeah, it was really organic, I would say, because as I mentioned, yeah, Jesse and I knew each other from our A16Z days, and then we both left to start as solo GPs around the same time. And initially, we just sort of commiserated about the process of fundraising, where every single week we would like get on a Zoom call. This was during COVID. And we'd be like, how's fundraising for you? And we'd be like, it's not really going anywhere. And so we just like bonded over that process. And then as we made more progress, we started talking about deals and like interesting things that we were seeing and like deals that we wanted to do. And then we just did that more and more. We like co-led deals together. We co-invested in things together. We co-invested in like, we co-led the round for Mirror.xyz. We were also investors in Foundation together. I think a bunch of other things. And at some point it was like, you know, we're spending so much time together. We're investing in like the same deals. Should we just actually do this together formally? And that was the conversation. And obviously a lot of like things had to be figured out, but, basically at the end of our Fund 1 deployment, we decided like, let's just team up and actually do this work together because we're so complementary. We see the world in a really similar way. One of our LPs actually said like, actually they were LPs in both of our Fund 1s, and they were like, yeah, I realized like you guys are basically, you have the same vision, but you're using different vocabularies to describe it, where the ownership economy and the passion economy are two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
And so you guys are actually rowing towards the same future.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was so apparent to us, like where there is just that inherent kind of mission and vision alignment. So it made a ton of sense for us to join up.
I think it was a powerful moment in the space too, because I remember at that point in time, like consumer crypto, social tokens, NFTs were all starting to become very popular. And at the time that you joined Variant, it was really like a perfect timing out there. And I think the important thing to highlight is that we don't talk a lot about the emotional state of investors as people having to raise and manage capital. We mainly just talk about like what investments they've made and whether or not they're making their LPs money, but it's a lot of pressure, being able to take in capital from other founders, taking capital from other investors, and then deploy that in an accurate way. And I feel like when you guys joined forces, it was just a foundational moment for kind of the consumer crypto space as a whole, because it kind of cemented this idea, like you said, of the ownership economy, the passion economy, and it's allowed you guys to now create this foundation where we're here in Williamsburg at this office. You have a team working out of here full time. Like, how's that felt for you, full circle, just reflecting on it for a bit?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I mean, I don't feel like I often have time to like reflect on everything and the whole journey that we've been on, because it just happens so fast, and day to day you're like just deep in it. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess a lot has happened in 3 years. Yeah. I would say that, like, yeah, things have happened really quickly, both like professionally as well as like macro wise in the markets and like with our theses. But it's been this incredible journey, and I'm really grateful to be where I am right now. But yeah, I think that initial kind of like vision and mission that we started off with, it's still the same mission that carries us through the work today. And it ties back to that question of like, why does crypto deserve to exist? Right. For me, I always started from the more humanistic perspective of what is the vision of the world that I want to see. And that guides me as an investor, and it helps shape like the bets that I make, because they support that kind of long-term vision of the world that I want to shape. And crypto fits into that because it's a technology that enables that vision. And I think it's always good to like ground yourself in that why. Yeah.
And let's talk about the current state of where this leads to today, because we've kind of come full circle at this point. Your background as a writer, J16Z, Atelier, and Variant. Now we're in the bottom of a bear market, right? I think that a lot of people are questioning, is crypto consumer going to have a moment at some point in the future? How do you think about spending your time as an investor today, working with founders? What's kind of this current vibe and state of the market as a whole right now?
Yeah, I think it's different for every investor in the space. For us, I mean, not that much has changed regardless of the market conditions. We're just like still continuing to deploy, still continuing to invest actively into early stage startups. I think probably the biggest shift is like how we allocate our time externally versus internally. That mix has shifted, where in the height of the bull market, when everyone is really interested in crypto, we spend a lot of our time explaining and translating to the outside world, like, what is this technology and why should people care? Now, in this moment, people are probably less receptive to that message. And so we naturally spend more of our time helping our portfolio companies, building them up, continuing to root for them and like help them along their journeys. So more of our time is spent like internal to our portfolio versus being externally facing. But it's really the same as before, I would say. And it's also supported by the fact that there continues to be a lot of early stage innovation in crypto. For instance, like we ran the summer fellowship with a bunch of early stage founders who participate in this cohorted educational program that we put together. There's still just like so many builders entering the space and wanting to start companies in crypto. And so our focus just remains on like supporting them, helping them along their journeys, because in our view, this technology is so promising and there's so much left to build. Let's just focus on helping those builders make that a reality, and like grounding them in what we see the potential being, and reminding everyone like to, keep growing in this direction. Right.
And I want to highlight for our listeners out there that Variant's been extremely supportive of the on-chain music space. You guys are investors in Sound XYZ and Catalog and a few others. And I think taking a step back psychologically, the biggest difference that I've noticed is that I feel like the cool factor on building on crypto right now has definitely like kind of left the building for a minute. I think that before, like whether it be in LA or New York or whatever it was, like if you were building a crypto startup, that was like a very cool thing to be doing. I think now it's very different, where it's kind of like you almost have to be really willing to stake your reputation to be a crypto founder, because I think the outside world wants to talk down on that just based on their sentiment that they have with the space as a whole. Is that something that you've experienced as well?
Yes. Oh, completely. Yeah. I think the public sentiment towards crypto is now night and day versus a couple of years ago. And like, I think some of that is for good reason, because like events have happened that like erode the public's trust in crypto as an industry. And it's really unfortunate that like all of us are collaterally damaged in that process, even in the founders that are doing like really good work and doing their life's work, by all of the bad actors in the space. So yeah, public sentiment has totally shifted. The cool factor is probably gone, but I actually think that's fine. That's okay. That's natural.
Yeah.
And I've been in investing long enough to see this happen to multiple sectors over time. And it always comes back, because when the technology truly does something that's valuable, it just always comes back. Like, I remember when I first started investing in venture in 2016, we were going through like the AI hype cycle round one. And every single pitch that I saw was like, we're doing AI this or that, or we're using AI in XYZ way. Every single pitch. And then that died down. It didn't live up to the promise. It was overhyped. And for a few years, like people were super down on AI. And now it's back. Now AI is like the cool kid in the building again.
Yep.
And I think crypto is very similar, where it goes through these like waves, because it's a very nascent technology and people don't fully understand what the promise is and how it can be leveraged. But we just have to like continue staying focused. And like, I have confidence that it'll come back.
Yeah.
And yeah, like for me, like whether or not the space is considered cool, it's almost like a distraction. People think that what's valuable is cool. Like what's cool is like things that work and bring value to people's lives. And so we just need to focus on that goal versus like being cool or not.
Yeah. And I think building in consumer for crypto apps is very different from traditionally speaking. If we think about the way that teams are thinking about product market fit, at least in my opinion, what we've seen work so far has been less about millions and millions of active users on a daily basis. It's more about like the retention from your top users. And I think there's something that's really important to unpack there for founders, artists that are listening to this. That's to say, you don't need to have millions and millions of users to have product market fit as a crypto app. If you're able to find, 10,000 engaged users that are actively coming back to your platform, that's something that's very valuable. And I think it's a very different way to think about building as someone building a consumer app.
Yeah, the advice that I give to a lot of our portfolio CEOs right now is retention matters more than top line growth. Retention tells you, meaning like the measure of like how many people are coming back. And there's ways to measure retention. There's like metrics about like day 7 retention, day 30 retention, which is like how many people are coming back, opening up your app on day 7, day 30, etc. And like that set of metrics around retention and are people coming back? Are they sticky? Are they continuing to use the thing that you've built? To me, that's a much clearer signal of whether or not you're actually solving a need versus whether the top line number of users is growing, especially in the current moment when there's just like not that many users to begin with. I think like looking at that top line can be really noisy because it reflects a lot of cyclicality in the market. It also is really easy to game if you just do a lot of marketing and like acquisition activities, but retention is really hard to game. It's really hard to move. Moving retention by a couple of points reflects the fact that you are delivering so much more value to your users. And so I've always emphasized retention over growth as the primary thing that early stage founders should be focused on.
And you had some cool stats last week on our panel about like the total number of users in crypto and some other just fun facts. Would you mind sharing them?
Yeah, I think it's always helpful to ground like the discussion in numbers and to think about where we are in the grand scheme of things. So let's see. One of the stats is that we are at a total of about 248 million cumulative Ethereum addresses that have been created. which obviously is not a one-to-one mapping to unique users. People have more than one wallet, but like, let's just be generous and say those are users. In that case, that would put us at about like 1999 levels in terms of internet adoption, because in 1999 we had 240 million total users using the internet. And so 1999 is like a really early stage of development in terms of the consumer internet. It's prior to all of the applications that we probably use on a daily basis, like the social networks had not yet started. Google was only 1 year old. And so the internet was like this place where no one knew what to do with it. And people thought like it was like there was just nothing to do. And I feel like we're at a similar point with crypto where people are like, what is this good for? It's because the applications have not yet been built that showcase that. And yeah, that's kind of where we are, 1999 level. And then if you look at the total number of active addresses on Ethereum, I think it's something like 500 to 600K per month. Addresses are active on Ethereum doing an on-chain activity, which is not very much. It's pretty low. But on the other side, like, it's also a substantial enough number where if you're building at the application layer, that's like a lot of users that you can capture. And these users are like, they're a special group of users too. They're like very affluent users that have a lot of capital. And so if you're thinking about a market to build in, there's actually like enough users on chain that are active and doing stuff to comprise like a really compelling application. And I think we've seen that recently with Friendtech, where if you build something that is delivering value to people in some way, like there's a lot of users waiting to use that.
And I think this is the biggest challenge for consumer crypto, is building for those 600,000 users that are here today versus trying to target the users who are not currently in crypto. And I think that from an investment perspective, a lot of founders like to talk about how we're going to reach a new audience, we're going to onboard the next billion users into crypto, et cetera. And I struggle with that a lot because the psychological behavior of why someone would use a crypto app, traditionally speaking, versus those people who are on chain today is very different. And I think that there's a huge gap in between, what an average fan of music would want to do today versus what like someone who's very active on chain would want to do today. And I'm curious to hear how you think consumer crypto will evolve and what that next, million, 2 million users will probably look like.
Yeah, our philosophy as investors is like culture is going to shift to meet crypto where crypto is at versus crypto contorting itself to meet people where they are right now. And so like we've always sort of had this view that we're the most interested in like what's really crypto native, and starting with a crypto native user base, a crypto native like creator base, like starting with something that's like net new versus targeting people who are already engaging in some behavior. That's like the kind of go-to-market approach that we've seen historically work versus I think a lot of like, I think there's another framework of like tourists versus purists. I can't remember who came up with this, but yeah, we're looking for people who are like really aligned with crypto and who are really active versus like targeting tourist users. I think there's a difference also in what type of application that you're building. If you're building like just a utilitarian application like payments or remittances or a global payroll platform, like yes, then maybe you should target like normal users who just have that problem and crypto can solve that problem better. But if you're building something that is like a net new consumer application that is trying to change people's behavior in some way, I think the way to do that is by targeting like on-chain native folks first, who are going to be the early adopters, and wait for that like behavior to diffuse out, versus like trying to somehow like target mainstream users who aren't on-chain.
And this is always where I get into a struggle with artists that I work with, because I think artists want to be famous and they don't necessarily want to target crypto users. When I talk to friends in LA, artists in LA, et cetera, they're like, I don't understand why I would want to be popular on chain if there's no one here. And I'm like, no, you have to think about how the space is going to grow and the fact that these are new users and they have a new behavior. And they're like, oh, these people don't care about my music. They just want to buy it and sell it. And there's a lot of truth in speculation being a core driver for being on chain. But I think the outside world has yet to appreciate that while speculation may exist, many users who are on chain are genuine believers in this technology and in these products and in these creators. and they're just investing in them in a way that's never existed before. But that doesn't mean that they have an expectation of needing to make a ton of money for you to be able to build a relationship with them. I think that that's the precedent that we set with NFTs, frankly. And we now need to reset the expectation of what it means to be a collector and to have a relationship with an artist in the first place.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about this on stage last week too, but yeah, what's happening in crypto, I think there's never really a pure analog in the Web 2 world, because we've opened up this entirely new dimension. It's like going from 2D to 3D, and people in the 2D world can't see what's going on in 3D. It's kind of like not fully comprehensible to them. And I think in crypto, there's this new dimension that we've opened up, which is the economic dimension. And that economic dimension underlies everything that we do on chain, because it's always present. Everything is rooted in assets. Everything has like scarcity, and therefore it has value. And so for creators who are thinking about like, these people don't like me, they just want to make money off of me, I think that's a very black and white way to look at it. Instead, I would challenge them to think about it as like, yes, these people they don't resemble like the fans that I have on Spotify, but they're also not just like pure speculators either. There's just something new. They are a new group of people that just haven't existed before, because we've opened up this new economic dimension. It's a new flavor of fandom that just previously had never been able to exist. And that thing is new. It's magical. I love it when there's new things. But yeah, there's not an exact counterpart to it before.
Right.
It's that mix of like fandom plus profit motive, patronage plus.
Yeah.
And
let's give an example of that. A fun example that my colleague Danielle likes to do is he asks his collectors to name 5 of his songs. And most of these people cannot name 5 of his songs.
Oh my gosh.
But the funny thing is that if you look at the amount of money that they have spent collecting his work and how passionate they are about him succeeding as an artist, it's tremendously higher than anyone that would find his music on TikTok or Spotify or something like that. And so you have this interesting polarity where a fan on Spotify or TikTok can probably name more than 5 of Daniel's songs, but they've probably spent a total of $10 on his artist project in their entire career because they just listened to it on Spotify for free. And so I think packing that, you have a collector who spent, thousands of dollars in the form of collecting something on chain versus someone who spent $10. And you almost have this spectrum where just because someone spends $10,000 on you, it doesn't mean that they don't care about your music. It's just a very different relationship. Like they want to support you as a whole. Versus as a fan, I think might just want to support an individual song or have like an eclectic moment, but they might not be as invested in your career as a whole.
Yeah, completely. I had this framework that I had published a few years ago about the fan pyramid, basically talking about how when people talk about a fan base or like your following, there's usually, it just compresses into a single number. Like you have 3 million fans or whatever. That actually obscures the level of diversity that's inherent in any given fan base. There's your super fans at the top of the pyramid. Then there's like your engaged fans. Then there's just the casual fans who would never spend money on you, but you're monetizing through advertising or whatever, streaming. Right. And I think crypto expands the fan pyramid. It's not replacing any level of the fan pyramid. It's just expanding it outwards in all directions. You have the super fans who are now willing to spend a crazy amount on a one-of-one, instead of just like listening to you for 100 hours. And then you also have like more speculator fans who are maybe more interested in the profit dimension of your work than actually the content itself. And so these are like new tiers of the fan pyramid that previously just weren't able to exist or express themselves in Web 2, that now exist in crypto. And I think that's a really incredible thing, because the more options that creators have, the more choices that they have, and the more choices, the better.
Right. And I think what I'm really excited about is artists starting from day one with having all of their music on chain. Because I think right now we live in this world where when you're investing in a creator that happens to have their work on chain, it's probably a couple years into their project. It might be their old content. It might be a combination of their new content. But I feel like we're starting to reach this phase where artists are releasing their very first work ever on chain. And I think when it starts from that foundation, it enables that fan pyramid to be built in a way that's uniquely different from anything that's existed in the past.
Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, the qualm that I have about people who are just like trying to think about Web 2 versus Web 3 is like, I think it's often framed as like a replacement for a substitution for, and it's not that. It's like something new. It's something incremental and additional to what has existed before. And so it's not like the Web3 creator economy wholesale replaces the Web2 creator economy.
Right.
It's new. It's like a new group of fans, a new flavor of motivation, and therefore it also like enables a new class of creators that couldn't have been successful before.
Yeah. I almost see it as like the root or the foundation of it, you know, and what I mean by that is putting your song on Sound XYZ is one thing. Thinking about how you talk to your collectors versus how you talk to your fans, how you raise capital to run a business, how you pay yourself a salary, etc. There's so many dimensions that go into being a creator these days that I think with the whole NFT hype cycle, we just thought of Web3 as this quick way to get paid. You know, it's like I can make a lot of money really fast from a bunch of strangers on the internet. But I think what it's changing into now, and the way I encourage artists to think about it, is that this is the foundation that you can build your business around. Like these are the people who are willing to provide you with capital at a larger sum. These are the people who are willing to support you in ways that are new and different from what existed previously. But that requires a lot of investment from you as well. Like if you just take capital from someone and you don't invest back in that relationship, that's where the separation comes from. And so I think there is a responsibility as a creator who is actively maintaining an on-chain catalog to say, I am going to give these collectors time and energy. I'm not saying they need to give them the most time and energy, but time and energy because they've invested in me in a way that other fans have not in the past. And I think it requires a certain level of discipline and of, you know, investment to allow that relationship to really flourish.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think it's a good place for us to kind of come full circle with it. You know, 2023, bottom of the bear market in Williamsburg here right now. It's just, it's really funny to take a step back because one thing that's really hard to translate on the internet is just like the culture that's emerged around like crypto consumer IRL. You know, like I'm just kind of feeling the energy here in Williamsburg. When you go out to these conferences, there's hundreds and thousands of people who are just coming here just to hang out with their friends. You know, we went to like the Seed Club meetup the other night and we saw all these amazing people. And I guess from a high level, how would you describe the impact that this space has had on your personal life to help people better understand why they might want to be here in the first place?
Wait, what do you mean by the impact that it's had on my personal life?
I'm going to give a clear example here. So Lee had her quarter birthday on Tuesday, which was amazing. First quarter birthday I've ever been to. And at her party was a lot of people who I met through the crypto space. I would say predominantly people that I met through there. But we weren't talking about work. We just happened to have met each other by the fact that we all were involved in this space.
Yeah, completely. I think I've always been like this type of person where most of my friends came from the internet, even like dating back to when I was in middle school. Like so many of my friends were online. By the way, a problem that I have with Gen Z, sorry if you're in Gen Z, is that Gen Z feels like they invented online friends. Like, no, millennials were on top of that way before. Like a lot of our friends came from the internet, online forums, blogs, LiveJournal. Like we all had LiveJournal friends. Anyway, so I've had online friends for a really long time. And I think crypto also has been really fruitful for me in terms of, like exposing me to new friends and people who otherwise I wouldn't have met. Yeah. And I think crypto is now large enough where there is no like single kind of set of values or ideology that it represents. And there's like different pockets and subcultures within it. And so it's like very easy to find your tribe within crypto. And so the people that I tend to surround myself with, and I think the people that were reflected at my quarter birthday party are like my kind of tribe within crypto, like people who are really creative, who care about empowering creators, who care about building an internet that is more meritocratic in like the way that it distributes ownership, people who are like just doing their life's work, and not like, just here for mercenary reasons, I guess. So it's had like a profound impact on my personal life, and I'm very grateful for that. Right.
I think it's also something that scares me a bit is how deep we're getting down like the rabbit hole, you know, in terms of how many different subsectors there are now. It's like you have kind of crypto from a high level, then you can go into DeFi, then you can go into consumer, then you can go into DAOs or governance, whatever it might be. Let's say you go into consumer, then you have gaming, then you have music, then you have, you know, all these other pockets. And one thing that I've been noticing recently is that there was a period in time when crypto was just crypto. You know what I mean? Like it didn't really matter where you spent time in. It was so small that you could just kind of have one collective conversation. It feels like now there really are so many different pockets and cultures that it's very difficult to stay up with them all. And I think one thing that I've struggled with is being so passionate about music. I'm well aware that on-chain music is an extremely niche corner of the internet. You know what I mean? But when I come to a crypto conference like that and people are like, oh, what's going on with music NFTs? You know what I mean? I don't really know if they actually care about that or not, or if it's just like a polite thing to do because we happen to be in crypto together. And I think it's an interesting way to look at the space as a whole to say that, yeah, there's just like such a variance in terms of how people are spending their time that it has been a little bit jarring for me to recognize that we're getting to a point where it is extremely difficult to be highly knowledgeable in all the different areas of crypto when there was a period of time when that was very possible to do.
I think it's a good thing, by the way. As someone who started my career in consumer investing, I never thought it should be realistic or possible for me to cover all of internet as an investor. Like there was no concept of an internet investor. Maybe there was like decades ago of like an internet focused VC, but like by the time I got started in venture, it had already split into those subcategories of your like consumer, enterprise, or infrastructure or whatever. And I think crypto, if it's successful, it's not going to be called crypto. It's just going to be consumer investing or B2B SaaS investing or infrastructure investing. Like it becomes everything. It pervades everything. And I think we're starting to get to like the very, very beginning stages of that now, but I ultimately view it as like a sign of health for the ecosystem. And yeah, no one can stay on top of it all. That's actually a good thing.
Yeah. And it was interesting seeing that at the demo day that we went to the other day. So, shout out Tokenbound. They basically had this demo conference where they had a presentation from Parallel on their gaming product. They had a presentation from Lens on their social product. I demoed this on-chain album standard that we had built. And I thought it was really fascinating to see that there is now like a separation from like the standards that are out there today and the applications of those standards, which goes to say, to your point, I think that we're reaching a maturity level where tools are now being designed in such a way that you can use them across a wide variety of industries and sectors. And I think that's a really healthy place to get to, where it's no longer just like ERC20 makes a token that trades on Uniswap, or like 721 makes an NFT that trades on OpenSea. Like we're now getting into a much more disparate space where I think these things are being used in a lot more complicated ways. And I find that very, very fascinating.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's almost impossible to build a horizontal tool anymore in crypto because there are just so many different use cases that are distinct and that warrant their own verticalized products. Right. Yeah, I actually think that's a really good thing too. Like it shouldn't just be like a marketplace that's focused on ERC20s or that's focused on 6551s even. Yeah. Like if these standards are to be successful, it's going to be a marketplace that focuses on solving a need for users and that can leverage a variety of token standards or even go beyond the token standard itself. But it's not like focused on the particular like data packet as that primary like kind of index for why that marketplace exists.
Right. I want to zoom out for a bit as we kind of come to closing thoughts here. So you've obviously been having an amazing summer. I've seen you all over the world at this point, which has been a beautiful thing in and of itself. But beside that, I know you've been taking some time for yourself just to explore the world a little bit more. Talk to me about how you're feeling just, from a high level these days. Let's step out of the crypto sector for a second here. Like, how is Li doing on a much higher level?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm doing well. Crypto is kind of like my whole life. So like, it's hard to think about how am I doing personally outside of crypto because it's like, wait, that's the same thing. This week has been really interesting coming out of mainnet because I think everyone got a lot of questions around like, what are you excited by right now? Yeah. What's exciting you? Like, what are you interested in? And, I think faced with that question over and over again, I was like, what am I interested in? What's actually exciting to me? And I realized there's like actually still a lot that is very exciting to me. I'm very excited by new ownership distribution mechanisms and how we can better distribute ownership to users moving beyond like airdrops and moving beyond liquidity mining as the predominant models. I think the past couple of years has been dominated by the application of tokens to this bootstrapping problem. I think that's just one very narrow application. And I think we can argue about how successful that's been or not successful. But I want to take tokens out of that context and think about how can ownership be applied throughout a project's lifecycle, not just at the beginning stages, but perhaps at the end of a customer journey to make them even more loyal, to make them into evangelists. So anyways, I'm working on this new piece. with Jesse about like this brand new ownership distribution model that we're proposing.
Yeah.
I'm also just like very interested in like what other consumer applications are being built. I think Friend Tech has revitalized like consumer crypto builders and shown them that actually there's like so much left to build in consumer crypto, and like there's a bunch of users and capital waiting to just use the next cool thing. So I hope it like captures a lot of people's imagination and inspires them to build. And then I think we're seeing like the beginnings of like a renaissance in terms of how different projects are reframing their relationships with creators. I think the creator economy in crypto has had kind of like a mixed kind of relationship historically, with royalties being a big reason why a lot of creators entered crypto and started playing around with NFTs. And then obviously royalties have been compressing and going to zero. But now I think we're seeing a lot of new models that are very innovative in how they pay creators.
Right.
And that includes like protocol rewards, which are kind of enshrined at the smart contract level, or like revenue fee sharing, like Friend Tech with their sharing of trading fees to creators. So, and then the other day I saw like a new L2 that is like designed to create a creator fund that is going to be used to like disperse back to creators on that L2. So anyways, I think there's a bunch of really interesting experiments being run right now around how do we create a more sustainable model to get money in the hands of creators. So anyways, that's like, you know, a branch of what I'm interested in. I realize your question was around like, how am I feeling in life in general?
I was going to comment on how you went there to that response, because I want to let you answer that question, but I find it so fascinating. I think this is why you and I get along so well, is that like my personal life is like almost entirely dependent on like how I feel professionally and how my work is going. You know what I mean? And I think being able to separate those two and say, okay, I have a life outside of crypto, and I have like a world that I need to maintain that is not just this thing, when everything I've known has been like this thing, is extremely difficult.
Yeah, I know. It's a constant work in progress. But I wouldn't have it any other way. Like I don't want to be living a life where I feel like I just want to go, I can't like wait till 5 o'clock and then to go home and like not think about work anymore. Yeah. That's just like not who I am. I've always been like a very integrated person. So yeah, everything that I just said about what excites me, it's also what excites me personally, just as a human being in the world. Because technology is all around us. It's like shapes who we are and how we operate in the world. And so it's inextricable from our personal lives. Yeah. I realize I'm still not answering the question.
Well, I want to give a funny anecdote here. The other day, Lee was like, I don't watch movies because I just go and live it in real life. And she's like, if I want to do something, I'm just going to go there. And so I just saw Lee like in Telluride the other week, just like crushing it, skiing and whatnot. And yeah, I feel like you really set yourself in such a way where you live a life that feels very fulfilled to you. And even though we are doing a lot of travel for conferences and events and whatnot, like I feel like you still take a lot of time for yourself to just like explore the world and still be present physically, despite the fact that the space we live in is entirely digital for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. I spend a lot of time like kind of being very closely attuned to my energy levels and trying to do the things that give me energy. Mm-hmm. And so that includes like writing, not just about work, but just like writing generally. I travel a lot. I like to go to museums. I like to oil paint. Mm-hmm. I recently have enjoyed scoping out different gluten-free bakeries.
Nice. Lee is about 9 days gluten-free as the time of recording this, huh?
Maybe more.
She's on a streak. That's all we're gonna
it's
say.
a long streak. It's like almost a 2-week streak.
Yeah.
I feel like a new person. Highly recommend it. Yeah, gluten-free all the way. The beginning of the rest of my life.
Totally. And I feel like it's just really important to like humanize these episodes, because I think a lot of the time we put out this like portrayal of who we are professionally on Twitter and whatnot. And I think that people have come to just really appreciate vulnerability, you know, and it's something that I'm trying to learn myself, is that we have this brand on the internet, that we have people watching us, that we want to like give them the best idealized self. But I think in a lot of ways, the more that you can find ways to just show who you are on a very human level, it actually allows people to trust you a lot more and resonate with the concepts that you have to share as a result.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think authenticity and vulnerability are really important. So yeah, hopefully that comes through for me.
Well, Lee, it's been amazing having you on the podcast here. Always enjoy our conversations. Is there any closing thoughts you'd like to share to wrap up this episode?
I can't think of any right now.
I'll give you a softball. Okay. Where should people stay up with you on social media, first and foremost?
People can follow me on Twitter, Li Jin18. People can follow my Substack, lee.substack.com. And then our website is variant.fund.
Nice.
Apply to the next Founder Fellowship.
And for the last question of the day, I know you've been teasing a couple pieces out here. What's the timeline on these, next alpha pieces that are coming out, and what can people expect from that?
I know it depends on how many other mainnet events I go to. So if I tap out there, I think I want to spend a lot of the next couple of days like working on this piece about ownership. And then I have a piece that's actually imminently about to come out. It's about building in consumer crypto, about product market fit versus UX.
Amazing. And ending on a music note, who are 2 or 3 of your favorite artists that people should know?
I went to Taylor Swift's concert over the summer. It was amazing, life-changing. It changed me. So obviously Taylor Swift, I think everyone probably knows that about me if you attended Variant Demo Day and was there at the very beginning. I also listen to a lot of Lorde. She's like the soundtrack to the entire winter season for me.
Nice. Well, there you have it. Li Jin, words of affirmation, Taylor Swift, Lorde. We got a couple of nice nuggets in here, but thank you so much for making the time and for letting us use this beautiful office. This was quite a fun episode, and I'm excited we got to do it.
You're always welcome here. Thanks, Cooper.
Cool. Thank you, guys. We'll see you all next week.